Have you ever wondered why certain things get under your skin so easily? Why, despite your best efforts, you find yourself reacting sometimes explosively to situations that, in hindsight, don't even deserve your energy? Why does a simple comment, a passing glance, or an unexpected setback feel like a personal attack? Today we dive deep into the nature of triggers, the dangers of being reactive, and the life-changing power of mastering your response. Let's start with this. Who is the real you? The one who reacts instantly, or the one who pauses to observe? Most of us live in a constant state of reaction. We don't respond, we react. And there's a massive difference. Reacting is immediate, unconscious, and often fueled by emotions we don't even understand. Responding, on the other hand, requires awareness, intention, and wisdom. But to break free from the cycle of reactivity, we must first understand why we are so easily triggered in the first place. Our triggers are not random. They don't come from the outside world, they come from within us. Every time we feel triggered, it is not the event itself that is the real problem. It is what the event stirs within us. It awakens old wounds, unresolved fears, and deep-seated insecurities that have been sitting in the shadows of our psyche for years, sometimes even decades. Think about the last time you were triggered. What really happened? Maybe someone criticized you. Maybe someone ignored you. Maybe someone disagreed with you. But was it really their action that caused your reaction, or was it something deeper? Maybe that criticism reminded you of a childhood wound you were always told you weren't good enough. Maybe that feeling of being ignored triggered an old fear of abandonment. Maybe that disagreement made you feel unseen, like your voice didn't matter.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
You see, triggers are never about the present moment. They are echoes of the past, and until we see them for what they truly are, we will continue to live as puppets, controlled by invisible strings of unprocessed emotions. Now, here's where it gets dangerous. When we are constantly reacting to everything around us, we give away our power. We allow external circumstances to dictate our inner state. If someone insults us, we get angry. If someone ignores us, we feel hurt. If something doesn't go our way, we feel defeated. We become slaves to the world, tossed around by every little event, every little comment, every little inconvenience. But let me ask you, do you really want to live like this? Do you really want to be a puppet controlled by everything and everyone around you? Or do you want to be free? True freedom is not about controlling the external world, it is about mastering your inner world. It is about being able to observe your emotions without being consumed by them. It is about having the awareness to recognize when a trigger is arising and the wisdom to choose how to respond. This is not easy. It requires deep inner work. It requires self-awareness, self-honesty, and a willingness to face the parts of ourselves we have been avoiding. It requires us to sit with our discomfort instead of running from it. It requires us to question our automatic reactions and ask, where is this coming from? What is this really about? But here's the truth. Every trigger is an invitation to heal, an invitation to grow, an invitation to reclaim your power. So, the next time you feel triggered, don't just react. Pause. Observe. Ask yourself, what is this really about? And instead of fighting the trigger, use it as a guide. It is pointing you towards something within yourself that needs your attention. Because here's the ultimate truth: the more you heal, the less you are triggered. The more you understand yourself, the less the external world will have control over you. And when you reach that level of inner mastery, you will no longer be a slave to circumstances. You will be unshakable. But how do we begin this journey? How do we break free from the cycle of unconscious reactivity? How do we train ourselves to respond with wisdom instead of reacting with emotion? The path to inner mastery is not about suppressing emotions or pretending to be unaffected by life's challenges. It is about developing a level of awareness so profound that no external force can shake your inner peace. Imagine being so centered, so in control of your inner world, that no matter what happens around you, you remain calm, grounded, and unshaken. This is not some mystical concept. It is a psychological and spiritual discipline that anyone can cultivate, but it requires deep work, brutal self-honesty, and a willingness to face the parts of yourself that you have avoided for years. The first step in breaking free from emotional reactivity is radical self-awareness. Without awareness, we are prisoners of our conditioning, reacting to life like machines programmed by past experiences, wounds, and fears. Every time you get triggered, it is an opportunity to observe yourself. Instead of getting lost in the reaction, take a step back and watch. What is happening inside you? What emotions arise? Where do you feel it in your body? What thoughts immediately follow the trigger? Most people never do this. They are so identified with their reactions that they never question them. But the moment you begin to observe your reactions, you create space between yourself and the emotion. And in that space, you have a choice. A wise person does not try to control the world, they learn to control themselves. This means recognizing that triggers are not enemies, they are teachers. They reveal where you are still wounded, where you are still attached, where you still lack understanding. If a comment about your intelligence triggers you, it is because you are insecure about your intelligence. If being ignored triggers you, it is because there is a part of you that feels unworthy of attention. If someone questioning your beliefs makes you angry, it is because you are not fully secure in your beliefs. The trigger is never about the other person, it is always about you. The world is merely a mirror, reflecting back the parts of yourself that you have yet to master. Once you become aware of this, you can begin the process of healing. Healing does not happen by avoiding triggers or blaming the world for how we feel. It happens by facing the wounds directly, sitting with them, understanding them, and integrating them. If something triggers you, do not run from it. Sit with the discomfort. Ask yourself, why does this bother me so much? Where does this feeling come from? What belief or wound is being activated? When you sit with your triggers instead of reacting to them, you take back your power. You stop being a puppet controlled by external events, and you become the master of your own mind and emotions. But this is not easy. Most people do not want to face themselves because it is uncomfortable. It is far easier to blame others, to justify reactions, to defend the ego. But nothing grows in comfort. And growth happens in discomfort, in the willingness to sit with pain without running, without numbing, without distracting. And here's the truth. The more you face your triggers, the weaker they become. Over time, what once provoked you will no longer have power over you. You will begin to see that nothing outside of you can truly disturb you unless you allow it to. Think about the most powerful, wise, or enlightened people in history. Were they reactive? Were they easily triggered? No, they had mastered themselves. They had reached a level of inner peace so profound that nothing could shake them. This is not because they were born special, it is because they did the inner work. They understood that the real battle is not with the world, but with oneself. Now let's talk about the dangers of being reactive. Every time you react impulsively, you are operating from a place of unconsciousness. You are letting emotions dictate your actions rather than wisdom. And what happens when we act from a place of reactivity? We say things we don't mean. We make impulsive decisions that we later regret. We create unnecessary conflict. We waste energy on things that do not matter. We let temporary emotions cause permanent consequences. Look at your own life. How many times have you reacted in a way that you later regretted? How many relationships have suffered because of uncontrolled emotions? How many opportunities have been lost because of a lack of self-restraint? Emotional reactivity is one of the greatest sources of suffering in life. It keeps us trapped in cycles of conflict, misunderstanding, and regret. It makes us easy to manipulate. If someone knows what triggers you, they can control you. If a simple insult can ruin your entire day, you are not free, you are a prisoner of other people's words. If a small inconvenience can throw you into frustration, then your peace is fragile and easily disturbed. True power is not about controlling others, it is about being unshakable in yourself. So what is the solution? How do we train ourselves to respond instead of react? The answer lies in cultivating inner stillness. Inner stillness is the ability to remain calm and centered, no matter what happens around you. It is the ability to observe emotions without being consumed by them. It is the ability to pause before responding, to act from a place of wisdom rather than impulse. And like any skill, it requires practice. One of the most powerful practices for developing inner stillness is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the art of being fully present, of observing thoughts and emotions without identifying with them. When you practice mindfulness, you train yourself to create space between stimulus and response. Instead of reacting immediately, you learn to pause, breathe, and choose your response with intention. This simple shift, pausing before reacting, can change your entire life. Another key practice is emotional regulation. When emotions arise, do not suppress them, but do not let them control you either. Acknowledge them, feel them, but do not act on them impulsively. Emotions are like waves, they rise, peak, and fall. If you can ride the wave without being thrown off balance, you will develop an unshakable presence. Also, question your beliefs and attachments. Many of our triggers come from rigid beliefs about how things should be. But the world does not exist to conform to our expectations. The more attached you are to a specific outcome, the more easily you will be disturbed when things do not go your way. Let go of the need to control everything. Accept that life is unpredictable. The less rigid you are, the less reactive you will be. Lastly, develop a strong sense of self. If you know who you are, if you are secure in yourself, if you do not seek validation from others, then nothing can shake you. Most reactivity comes from insecurity. But when you are deeply rooted in self-understanding, external opinions lose their power over you. Imagine living a life where nothing disturbs your peace, where you navigate challenges with calmness and clarity, where you are no longer controlled by emotions, but instead you control them. This is not an unattainable ideal, it is a reality that anyone can achieve with practice. The more you train yourself to observe rather than react, the more powerful you become. So the next time you feel triggered, remember, this is a test. A test of your awareness, your growth, your mastery over yourself. Will you react blindly, or will you pause, observe, and respond with wisdom? The choice is yours. But know this: the more you choose awareness over reactivity, the freer you become. And true freedom is not found in controlling the world, it is found in mastering yourself. Mastering emotional reactivity is the key to inner freedom. Yet most people go their entire lives without even realizing they are trapped in a cycle of automatic reactions. They wake up, go through their day, and respond to situations without ever questioning why they feel the way they do or where their emotions come from. They assume that anger, frustration, sadness, or irritation are justified simply because they arise. But emotions are not reality, they are responses, and those responses are often conditioned by past experiences, unconscious beliefs, and unresolved wounds. Until we become aware of this, we remain prisoners of our own minds, reacting to life as if we have no control. But the truth is, we do have control. We may not have control over what happens to us, but we absolutely have control over how we respond. And that response determines everything: our peace, our happiness, our relationships, our success. Reactivity leads to suffering, while awareness leads to liberation. The question is, which path will you choose? To truly free yourself from emotional reactivity, you must first become deeply acquainted with your own mind. You must study yourself as if you were studying a subject in school. Observe your thoughts, observe your emotions, observe your triggers. What makes you angry? What makes you defensive? What makes you feel insecure? Every reaction is a clue, a breadcrumb leading you to something unresolved within yourself. But most people never follow these breadcrumbs. Instead, they get lost in the reaction itself, blaming the external world for how they feel, rather than looking inward to understand why they are feeling that way in the first place. The moment you shift your focus from blaming the world to understanding yourself, you take back your power. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start becoming the master of your own mind. But awareness alone is not enough. You must also develop emotional discipline. Emotional discipline is the ability to feel an emotion without letting it control your actions. It is the ability to sit with anger without lashing out, to sit with sadness without sinking into despair, to sit with fear without being paralyzed by it. Most people are ruled by their emotions because they have never trained themselves to handle them. They assume that if they feel something strongly, they must act on it. But this is not true. Just because you feel anger does not mean you need to express it recklessly. Just because you feel hurt does not mean you need to lash out. Just because you feel triggered does not mean you need to react. The strongest people are not the ones who never feel emotions, they are the ones who have mastered the art of controlling them. Training emotional discipline takes practice. One of the simplest yet most powerful techniques is the practice of pausing. Whenever you feel a strong emotion arise, do not react immediately. Pause. Take a deep breath. Observe. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? Is my reaction necessary? Is my reaction wise? This small moment of pause creates space. And in that space, you have a choice. You can either react unconsciously or you can respond with awareness. And the more you practice this, the stronger your emotional discipline becomes. Over time, you will find that situations that once triggered you no longer have the same effect. You will develop an inner steadiness, an unshakable presence that remains calm even in chaos. Now, let's discuss something even deeper, the root of all emotional reactivity. If you trace every emotional reaction to its core, you will find that it is always connected to one thing: attachment. Attachment is the root cause of all suffering. We suffer not because of what happens to us, but because of our attachments to how we think things should be. If you are attached to people treating you a certain way, you will be triggered when they don't. If you are attached to being seen as intelligent, you will be triggered when someone questions your intelligence. If you are attached to control, you will be triggered when things don't go according to plan. Every trigger reveals an attachment, and every attachment is a chain that binds you. The solution? Let go. Not in a passive, indifferent way, but in a deeply intentional way. Letting go does not mean you do not care, it means you refuse to let external things dictate your internal state. It means you release the need to control everything, the need to be right, the need to be validated, the need to be seen in a certain way. It means you trust yourself enough to know that no matter what happens, you will be okay. And when you reach this state of detachment, you become untouchable. No insult can shake you. No setback can break you. No external event can disturb your peace. Because your peace no longer depends on anything outside of you, it comes from within. But how do we practice letting go? The first step is awareness. Every time you feel triggered, ask yourself, what am I attached to? What expectation is not being met? What am I resisting? Simply bringing awareness to the attachment weakens it. The second step is acceptance. Accept that life is unpredictable. Accept that people will not always act the way you want them to. Accept that you cannot control everything. The more you resist reality, the more you suffer. The more you accept reality as it is, the more peace you will have. The third step is trust. Trust that you do not need to control everything to be okay. Trust that you have the inner strength to handle whatever comes. Trust that life is unfolding exactly as it needs to, even if you do not always understand it. This practice of letting go is not something you do once, it is a lifelong discipline. But the more you practice it, the freer you become. And freedom is the ultimate goal. Freedom from reactivity, freedom from attachments, freedom from suffering. Imagine living a life where nothing disturbs your inner peace, where you move through the world with calmness and clarity, where you are no longer a slave to emotions, but instead you master them. This is not some abstract ideal, it is a state of being that is available to you right now. But it requires work. It requires discipline. It requires a deep commitment to self-awareness and self-mastery. So I ask you now, are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to face yourself? Are you willing to let go of the attachments that keep you trapped? Because the truth is, you are not as powerless as you think. You do not have to be a puppet, controlled by every little thing that happens around you. You have the power to be free. But that freedom is not given to you, it must be earned. Earned through awareness, earned through discipline, earned through the courage to let go. So the next time you feel triggered, remember this. This is not a moment of weakness. This is a test of your growth, your awareness, your mastery over yourself. Will you react blindly, or will you pause, observe, and respond with wisdom? The choice is yours. But know this, the more you choose awareness over reactivity, the freer you become. And true freedom is not found in controlling the world, it is found in mastering yourself.